Last December in Wuhan, China, a number of persons presented with this unusual pneumonia. Interestingly enough, most of the people who were afflicted worked at a local seafood market where they also sold live animals. By January, the authorities had identified the cause of illness to be the coronavirus. Now, the coronavirus have been with us for a really long time. This was a new strain, something they call the novel coronavirus or Covid-19, as most of us have come to know it. By mid-January, the Chinese announced the first death as a result of the coronavirus. And now today, globally, that number has skyrocketed to almost 6,000 people, with another 160,000 afflicted or infected with the disease around the world. The World Health Organization has declared this a pandemic. It has now spread to more than 100 countries. You have, as we all know, Wuhan was quarantined. Cruise ships have been quarantined, many of them not being allowed entry into ports around the world. The entire country of Italy has been on lockdown, and now the United States have also declared a state of emergency. To say this is a big deal, to say this is a major disruption, is perhaps an understatement of the year, which is still very young. The sting of this thing can be felt across the entire supply chain and many industries. Factories are being closed. Flights are being cancelled. Travel restrictions have been put in place. Schools and colleges around the world are closing. Sports leagues have either suspended or totally canceled their competitions. Meetings, conferences, concerts, events that require large crowds have either been postponed or cancelled altogether. I mean, the list of disruptions go on, and you get the sense that this thing is going to wreak havoc, and this is just the beginning. The impact, I believe, is going to be massive. How massive? That is still yet to be seen. Naturally, the hand-wringing has begun and the anxiety is mounting as people fret about their safety and their well-being. Big industries are threatened. Small businesses, independent contractors, hourly workers, they're all at risk. I mean, people are worried and they're asking themselves, am I or my loved ones, are we going to get infected? Is my job safe? Will my business go belly up? Will the economy collapse? I mean, this is real. This is unpredictable. This is frightening. So the question is, what do we do? Obviously, we want to protect ourselves, and that's one of the reasons why you see people wearing face masks. Although I've heard stories, so many people hoarding face masks. We want to be as prepared as we possibly can for the worst, but unfortunately, that has also triggered panic buying in many supermarkets. The one that gets me though is that somehow the advice, the admonition on the part of officials for us to wash our hands as frequently as possible has somehow translated into the stockpiling of toilet papers. That's just amazing. But you know, seriously, what I think that reflects is the anxiety and the fear that many of us are feeling. So again, what do we do? How do we keep ourselves on an emotional even keel, not only during this particular coronavirus crisis, but crises in general? Well, I'd like to share 4 ideas with you. 4 ideas that I believe will not only help you to ride through this challenge created by the coronavirus, but to navigate other crises that may pop up in your life as well. I call them my 4 A's to coping with crisis. So here goes. The first A is for appreciate. Now I'm sure some of you are probably scratching your head or doing the double take going, did he just say appreciate? Yes, I did just say appreciate. It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? I know some of you are saying, how in the world can I be appreciative? How in the world can I find something to be grateful for when everything is falling apart around me? Well, let me say this. Regardless of how tough, how bad times might get, even in the midst of your deepest crisis, even in the midst of your greatest loss or lack, I promise you, you can find something to be grateful for. You can find something in your life to appreciate. There is goodness everywhere in the world, and if you look, and you don't have to look too hard, you will find something that you can be grateful for in your life. Now, I know it's really easy to be appreciative. It's really easy to be grateful when life is good. Goodness has a way of allowing us to celebrate or even amplify the goodness because all is good in the world. But what about those times when life isn't so great? What about those times, kind of like now, when we are dealing with a crisis and we are faced with anxiety and fear and trepidation? As we begin to plunge deeper and deeper into this health crisis, which undoubtedly is going to lead to some severe economic hardships, how can we even begin to fathom this idea of being appreciative, of finding something to be grateful for? Again, it does sound counterintuitive, doesn't it? But that's exactly under these circumstances that we need to find something to be grateful for. In fact, it's essential that we find something to appreciate in our life. Psychologist and author Dr. Robert Emmons says this: in the face of demoralization, gratitude has the power to energize. In the face of brokenness, gratitude has the power to heal. In the face of despair, gratitude has the power to bring hope. In other words, gratitude can and will help us to cope with bad times. But he also made another interesting observation. He pointed out the fact that there's a clear distinction between feeling grateful and being grateful. Look, I think we all accept the fact that we don't always have total control over how we feel, right? We can't always control how grateful or appreciative we feel, whether or not we feel less depressed or less stressed or even feel happier. Our feelings flow from our perception of the world. They flow from the way we look at the world, the way we interpret the events that are taking place in our lives. So yes, it is about our perception, what we think about the way things are compared to how we believe they should be, and the distance between those 2 points. The closer those points are, the more likely we are to feel appreciated, the more likely we're going to feel grateful, the less likely we'll feel stressed or depressed. On the other hand, being grateful is a choice. It's an attitude. It's an attitude that exists and sustains itself, it guards itself, it shields itself from the success or the failures or the abundance or the lack, the goodness or the hardships that flow in and out of our lives. In other words, regardless of how good or bad it gets, we can always find something in our lives to be grateful for. So when disaster strikes, instead of focusing on one temporary event and becoming overwhelmed by it, choose instead to be grateful. Find something to appreciate. One of the many wonderful things about gratitude is that it allows us the perspective to see life in its entirety instead of through the prism of the snapshot of one moment in time. So the first A is for appreciate, the next A is for accept. Look, there's no use burying your head in the sand and pretending that this isn't happening. It's happening, it's here, right? It's pointless sitting around kind of hoping that somehow it's going to go away miraculously, because it ain't, right? It's here, and we have to acknowledge that it's here. We have to acknowledge the fear and the anxiety and the uncertainty and the trepidation and the panic, whatever it is that you're feeling. You have to acknowledge those feelings instead of pushing them away. But, and it's a big but, do not, and I repeat, do not dwell on it. Do not allow these feelings, these negative feelings, to overtake you, because it will disempower you. It will cause you to wallow in self-pity. And I'm telling you, man, this is the worst place from which to operate, whether you're dealing with this crisis or some other crisis that may appear in your life. Accept your new reality, but always with the hope of something better, perhaps something easier around the corner. But I get it. I get that, facing reality isn't always the easiest thing, but it's during these times that I'm reminded of the serenity prayer, which says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. If you reflect on that prayer, I think you'll notice something, and it's this. The things you cannot change are the things that have already happened. But by accepting them, you empower yourself to get to work. You give yourself permission to brainstorm ideas and come up with plans that are going to help you to work through the challenge and come up with the best result possible. You may not have any control over the fact that this virus is here or whatever other crisis that might pop up in your life, but you definitely have the ability to accept that it's here and then just figure out what you need to do to make things right. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow tells us the best thing one can do when it's raining is let it rain. Acceptance is recognizing that it might rain. An umbrella might keep you dry, but you can't stop the rain. You have no choice over whether or not it's going to rain. So perhaps what we need to do is not to shy away from life's challenges. I speak all the time about learning to find comfort in discomfort, learning how to become comfortable during times of change and challenges, right? Struggle, my friends, is a way of life. And so what we need to do is learn how to prepare ourselves and to deal with those challenges, how to overcome them, because in so doing, they prepare us for the next challenge that lies ahead. I think we can take solace in Napoleon Hill's quote when he said, every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. By the way, acceptance is not passive. It doesn't mean that you're sitting there waiting for something to happen to you or happen for you. And it's not resignation either. It doesn't mean lowering your standards or not caring, or worse yet, giving up. As Michael J. Fox tells us, acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It means understanding that something is what it is and there's got to be a way through it. What I know is this: there's just no way, absolutely no way you can improve something unless you accept it. But when you do, you gain clarity, you gain this perspective that allows you to deal with these oftentimes real, complex and perplexing challenges that life throws at us. When you accept the situation, you're able to focus on the things under your control, and you're able to ask yourself some very pertinent questions. I mean, how is this impacting my life? What can I do to mitigate the risks? Doing this and asking these questions is going to help you to take the kinds of actions that will make things better. So appreciate, accept, and the third A is for adapt. Adaptation is essential. It is, in fact, central to our survival. Those who don't adapt die. Sounds jarring? I don't mean to be, but it's true, literally and figuratively. Those who don't adapt, they lose their lives. We lose society as we know it. We lose our businesses, our jobs, our relationships, and so on and so on. Charles Darwin says, it's not the strongest or the most intelligent who will survive. It is the one who is most adaptable to change. Of course, at some time or another, individually or collectively, we're all going to experience change. I mean, abrupt change. Here it is that we're going about our lives, as we envision it, and then the shoe drops, right? Misfortune or crisis forces us to take a completely unplanned turn. And I'm telling you, man, it's going to be our ability to adapt to this new normal that is going to play a huge role in how our future takes shape. I think what we have to remember is that change is natural. It's an inevitable part of life. And sure, it's painful. We tend to resist change, especially when we feel threatened or vulnerable, as many people do today. But we have to remember, as I said earlier, we must learn to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. Let us not forget, though, that learning to be adaptable is a skill. It's a really important skill that we need to develop because it's going to serve us well in our everyday lives, but especially during times of crisis and change. Now, what does that mean for us in the wake of this coronavirus outbreak? I think it means practicing in earnest all the things that we hear the officials encouraging us to do. Staying away from large gatherings, practicing self-isolation, washing your hands frequently, refraining from touching your face, doing a fist or an elbow bump instead of the traditional handshake. If you're a business owner, this might be a wonderful opportunity for you to pivot your business. Identify an area in your business that might be underdeveloped, underserved, or just plain neglected. Identify an area in your industry at large that you can perhaps tap into and provide a new line of products or services. The bottom line is, regardless of the area of your life that is in crisis, your ability to cope effectively with it relies in part on your ability to change, your ability to properly manage change, to adapt, and to create a plan that is going to give you some direction, some meaning, and some purpose. So appreciate, accept, adapt, and the fourth A, abide. Look, none of us are going to get through this life with everything being nice and cushy all the time. No, man. There are going to be some challenges. There are going to be troubles, as it were. And this coronavirus is one of those challenges that we're going to have to face. So our job is to abide. We have to find a way to hang in there, to persevere. So let me share with you quickly 3 ways in which I think you can do that. The first thing is that you have to take action. We spoke about this before. You can't be sitting around passively waiting for something to happen to you or happen for you. Sitting around and wallowing in self-pity disempowers you, right? So you have to embrace the suck. I get it. It sucks right now, right? You're uncertain, you're scared, you're perhaps on the verge of panicking. By the way, they say panicking is just simply acting fearfully without a plan. And so you have to take action by coming up with a plan. Perhaps this is a time for you to start planning for that career or business move that you've been thinking about all this time, right? Things are slow now, as it were, in the economy. Now might be a good time. It doesn't matter. Whatever the action is, no matter how small or seemingly inconsequential, take it, do it, take action, do something. Because each action, each step that you take towards a solution is going to make you feel better. So it's going to empower you, it's going to make you feel good about yourself and the fact that you're doing something to make things better in your life. So take action and think positively. You have to believe that somehow or another, you don't have to know how, but just that somehow or another things are going to work out, things are going to get better. I call it the power of positive possibility. That will help you to focus on all the things you can control, as opposed to worrying about the myriad of things you have absolutely no control over. It's going to help you to focus on the things that are going right, the things that you're doing right, as opposed to what's going wrong. Of course, I'm not suggesting that you ignore the problem, right? But when you think positively, when you focus on the things that are going right, it takes your mind off all the negative things. Positive thinking leads to positive actions, which leads to positive results. So take action, think positively, and thirdly, stay connected. I mean, we're hearing so much about the economic recession that this crisis is going to create. But what we don't hear about is the social recession that we're going to experience as well. I mean, we're talking about social distancing, social isolation, and that is going to leave so many people feeling lonely and vulnerable because of the lack of interaction with other human beings, the kind of interaction that they have come to expect and they're accustomed to every single day. So we have to make sure that we're reaching out to others and connecting with them. Support and connection are critical for our survival during times of crisis. So the onus then is on us to reach out to others and share our concerns, share our struggles, but also to reach out to people who we think may be having a difficult go at it as well. So look, we may be isolated, but we don't have to live in silos. Human connection, human interaction, even via the internet, is key. It's going to be central to help us to build up our resilience so that we can abide, we can persevere and successfully get through to the other end of this. None of us knows how long this thing is going to last, nor do we know what the social and economic impact it's going to leave on us. But what I do believe is that just like in the past, all the crises that we have had to deal with individually and collectively as a society, and we've been able to overcome them, in this case, will ultimately prevail as well. So appreciate, accept, adapt, and abide. Let those be your watchwords. I am Devon Harris, and as always, keep on pushing.